Let's get perspective now on a major development in Pakistan where Army Chief Asim Munir has amassed unprecedented powers and lifelong immunity, and the apex court's mandate has been cut. This has triggered resignations of judges in protest and a protest call by the opposition alliance. For perspective, we are being joined by Ambassador TCA Raghavan, former Indian High Commissioner to Pakistan, and my colleague Amritpal Singh, who covers foreign affairs for us, joins us now as well. Ambassador, I'll begin with you. Judges in Pakistan have started handing in their resignations in protest against what we know is the 27th Constitutional Amendment. Now, the opposition alliance that is led by Imran Khan's party, PTI, has pledged to hold protests. There are major plans going forward. Why this bid, do you think, to give massive power and also lifelong immunity to Munir? And also, why weaken the Supreme Court by setting up another court for deciding constitutional cases, whose judges again would be appointed by the government?
Well, what we are seeing now is a major effort at turning the clock back. In the post-Musharraf period, which is roughly from about the beginning of the second decade of this century, the civilian political class and the judiciary had accumulated a certain amount of influence and prestige vis-a-vis the army, and they were in a position of pushing back. The military never liked this position and progressively sought to reverse this accumulation of power and prestige in the hands of the judiciary and in the political class. So what we are seeing in some ways in the form of the 27th Amendment is the end of that process, whereby the military now has again re-established its effective supremacy over different organs of the Pakistani state. Secondly, what is also significant is that what was otherwise always de facto, that the army was the principal and the most important arm of the Pakistan military, now de jure in the form of its chief of army staff being elevated over the other service chiefs. So what was de facto has become de jure, and certainly there's a great deal of accumulation of power and influence in the form of in the person of General Asim Munir in his new post of Chief of Defence Forces.
Okay. Let's now go to Amrit. Amrit, I'm quoting here the two Supreme Court judges who have submitted their resignations in protest. There's Justice Athar Minallah, who says that the constitution that I swore an oath to uphold and defend is no more. Justice Mansoor Ali Shah says that the judiciary had been brought under the control of the government and that the 27th Amendment had torn the Supreme Court to pieces. What do you think was the motivation behind such an amendment?
The motivation, as Ambassador Raghavan says, is to consolidate power in the hands of the army. The 27th Amendment does two things. One, it takes over some of the executive powers. It makes the Field Marshal more powerful. The Army Chief, who will also be the Chief of Defence Forces, more powerful. He'll have control over the other two forces. So within forces, he becomes powerful. And also, as we know, there is a Prime Minister, but right now in Pakistan, but the Field Marshal is far more powerful than him. So the 27th Amendment, in a way, weakens the executive. It also weakens the judiciary, because if anybody could stand up to the army, there was a possibility of the Supreme Court standing up to the army. Remember in 2007, when Musharraf tried to mess with the judiciary, it led to popular revolt, long marches from Lahore to Islamabad, and finally Musharraf had to go. Now General Munir, or Field Marshal Munir, does not want such a situation to arise again. What if some judge pardons Imran Khan? What if Imran Khan comes out? These kind of situations. So here he does not want to leave anything to chance. So General Munir, or Field Marshal Munir, himself and the institution of the army chief becomes all powerful, and the other two legs in democracy, that's the legislature and the executive, become subservient. So I think that is the motivation behind the 27th Amendment. In fact, it completes what was left unfinished in the 26th Amendment, because there was a pushback. They tried to do the same thing in the 26th Amendment, but they had to stop short because of the pushback. We'll have to see now how much pushback is there. 2 judges of the Supreme Court, 1 today of the High Court, have resigned, but unless it leads to a popular movement, because there is precedence in Pakistan. Musharraf's case earlier, Ayub also had to face some sort of a backlash, though he ruled Pakistan for a very, very long time, I think 11 years. But there have been instances where dictators in Pakistan have had to listen to popular will. It all depends upon how things shape up in the coming days, and if it becomes a popular movement, only then we could see such reversal. But right now, the parliament, the legislature, the executive, and to a great extent the judiciary, because only 2 judges of the Supreme Court and 1 of the High Court have resigned. Even in the media, some editors have written against it, but mostly it's a compliant state and people with the institution of the army chief. Munmun?
Right. It's interesting that you're talking of the possibility of a reversal too. So let's take that to the ambassador now. Justice Aminuddin Khan, ambassador, has taken oath already as the first Chief Justice of Pakistan's newly established FCC, the Federal Constitutional Court. Now, though this is a huge blow to whatever little democracy was there in Pakistan, is the die cast now, or can popular protest still lead to a reversal?
You see, something quite significant has happened in Pakistan over the past few months. Nobody could have predicted such a decisive shift of power and prestige and influence in favor of the Pakistan army a year ago. A year ago, the Pakistan army was certainly on the defensive. Its image had been greatly dented, and the feeling was that it had ganged up with a section of the political class to keep Pakistan's most popular politician, Imran Khan, in jail. And to do that, it had also rigged the election. So its image had taken a real battering. Following the May-June crisis with India, what the Pakistan army and the Pakistan military was able to do very successfully was to spin a narrative or sell a narrative to its domestic audience that it has successfully stood up to India. And that enhanced its domestic prestige tremendously, and to a great extent repaired that dented image. Alongside that, they have also sold the narrative to their people that our international acceptability, which had gone into a downswing from about 2018 till about 2024, is now on an upswing. And certainly the relationship with the United States, the changes in the interface with Saudi Arabia, all of that animate that process of a wider international acceptability. So because of these two factors, the Pakistan army and the Pakistan military's prestige and popularity in Pakistan is at a relative high. It has certainly improved and regained the position from what it was in 2022, 2023, and 2024. And these are the factors which has now empowered it to carry out these radical constitutional changes, which were in fact not really possible till quite recently. As your correspondent said, the 26th Amendment had also tried to put the clock back where the judiciary is concerned, but it had to compromise, and it could not really break up the Supreme Court in the way that the 27th Amendment has now done. So I think when we talk about popular protests reversing this decision, it is useful to keep in mind the fact that the Pakistan Army's domestic popularity is quite strong presently because of this narrative which it has sold to the people that it has successfully stood up to India.
A reputation built on false narrative. Amrit, judges in Pakistan can now also be transferred to different courts without their consent, and if they don't agree to the transfer, then judges can appeal to the Judicial Commission. But if their reasons are found to be not valid, then the judge would have to retire. So will this, you think, put judges under tremendous pressure to toe the government line? And also, does this really leave no hope for the common man to get any justice, especially in cases that are filed against the government? And can they then go down the path of anarchy? And could this be the beginning of a civil war?
Munmun, not the judges would then retire. The judges would assume to stand retired if they do not agree with the executive or that National Judicial Commission, which is primarily appointed by the government of the day and by extension by the army. So clearly, if there is a difficult judge, he stands transferred. He can be transferred to the Constitutional Court. He can be transferred to the. He can be transferred out. He can be not assigned responsibilities. The judiciary does not have powers to select in the 26th Amendment itself who will be part of the Constitutional Court. In fact, the 27th Amendment now strips the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. He may not be the Chief Justice of Pakistan. The 27th Amendment says the senior of the Chief Justice of FCC or the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court shall be the Supreme Court Chief Justice of Pakistan. So clearly this is an assault on the independence of the judiciary. It's a bid to make them more compliant. Depends upon will the judges be able to stand up to this? Will the legal fraternity come out? Will the intelligentsia of Pakistan be able to mobilize people? With Imran in jail, his mobilization of his party cadres is limited, and also what the ambassador was saying, given they've been able to sell the narrative of defeating India in what they called Operation Bunyan Marsus, if I'm not wrong, their counterpart to Op Sindoor, their uptick in the relationship with the United States, the promise of Donald Trump getting them more money flowing in through IMF, etc. The army is in popular perception in a stronger position. That's why when General Munir elevated himself to a field marshal, we saw hardly any kind of protest in Pakistan. Now he takes it a step further and gives himself immunity, and he remains the field marshal for life. He wouldn't be a decorative field marshal. He'll be a serving field marshal for life. He could start around at the age of 100 in his uniform, with the powers of the field marshal, and one who cannot be prosecuted for criminal activities that he may or actions that he may undertake during his tenure. So clearly here, whether it will go down the path of civil unrest remains to be seen. But I think before such kind of a thing happens, if there is a popular protest, if the intelligentsia, the judiciary, the legal fraternity, as we saw in 2007, mobilize themselves to an extent that the army feels that it could be a threat to the institution, they may want to reverse some parts of Amendment 27. It's not unusual in Pakistan. Many reversals have taken place. Many constitutions have been thrown out. Whenever a dictator came, he either threw out the constitution, brought in a new constitution. Unlike India, they've had many constitutions. And with a new dictator, they had a new constitution, and every time a dictator came, he sometimes abrogated the constitution when it suited him, later brought back the constitution. So all that can happen. All those possibilities exist. It depends upon how much mobilization of the people power on the street happens in the coming days. But as things stand today, that to me, sitting here in India watching it from a distance, looks a little difficult, given that the army has been able to consolidate its perception as the savior of the people of Pakistan. The other institutions, be it political parties, stand compromised in terms of popular perception.
Yes.
Munmun?
Right. We'll leave it at that. So what was a fledgling democracy, it seems the cover of whatever little democracy was there is blown off with this constitutional amendment. We'll leave it at that. Ambassador and Amritpal, thank you so much for joining us with your inputs.